We've got some delightful music and a delightful guest for today's Song of the Soul. Mike Hamer hails from North Carolina these days and has decades of music experience both performing a wide variety of music and writing his own. Originally a guitar and bass player and always passionate about music, he had to alter his musical tools when, in his later 30s, he had an accident that left him a paraplegic. You'll find that he's all the more of a gift to the world, personally and musically, knowing what he's overcome to produce such fun, deep, and soulful songs. Mike Hamer joins us today from North Carolina. Mike, thanks so much for joining me for Song of the Soul.
Thank you so much for asking me to be on your program.
We've got, I guess, a kind of a mutual friend, Alan Stockbridge. You've known him for a while. How did you come in contact with him? You know him pretty well?
I can't say I know him pretty well, but I've known him for quite a while. And actually, we know each other from a big old party that we go to every year. And gosh, we've been doing it for about 37 years or something. Alan's always kind of been a fan of my music, so it's always good to see him or hear from him.
Well, your music is new to me, Mike, but you've been doing music for quite a while. How'd you get into music? How far back does it go in your life? What groups have you played with? Give us a little background.
Well, grew up in a family. My dad's family was small, but my mom's family would get together. They were French-Canadian. They would get together in the summertime or, at holidays. And they would always get my uncle. I had an Uncle Roland, and he was a really good piano player, really good musician. So they'd always get him to play the piano, and they'd sit around and sing. So that's kind of the genesis. And then I went to Catholic school when I was a kid, and we had a really good music teacher. She could have been in a college, but we were lucky enough to have her in our small high school. Gosh, she taught me a lot about music. She was just an excellent teacher. I was in high school during the time of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and somewhere in there I fell in love with folk music. Peter, Paul, and Mary were big, and of course loved Joan Baez and Bob Dylan right off the bat. Pete Seeger, I have to mention, a huge influence. After college, took up playing the guitar and learning all those songs, and probably wrote my first song, I don't know, when I was 18 or so. I didn't write much in those days. I would just write, whenever I'd get one of those gift songs, those wonderful gift songs that come now and again. Let's see, I moved to North Carolina in 1974. Probably played even more music in North Carolina. It's a college town here where I live, and back in those days, the kind of quote-unquote hippies, we'd get together for parties and always do some music, some kind of music either. Also, I had some friends who did the blues, and so I got introduced to the blues. Let's see, I was a guitar player, and somewhere along the line I learned to play bass, and so I played bass with Lightning Wells. Let's see, I played with a really good songwriter, Tom Gillespie. It was the Tommy G Band, and for a little while it was the Gillespie Hamer Band, but then around, I don't know, about 81 or so, Tommy was thinking about hitting the road full-time, and I figured out that, well, I don't think I want to be a full-time musician. I think I'd rather just be a weekend musician, and so I went back to college and got my master's in English, but kept playing music, of course. Then soon after, got in a band that went for quite a long time, the Lemon Sisters and the Rutabaga Brothers. That was a band. We had 3 women and originally 3 males, and then after my accident, we got a bass player, and so we had 4 guys and 3 women. And gosh, we went for about 22 years. And we did some old Boswell Sisters stuff from the late 20s and some little bit of 30s swing and then some 40s R&B and 50s R&B and then some girl group stuff from the late 50s and early 60s. And then more recently, or after my accident, some friends got together to do a benefit, and they asked me to sing, which I was just delighted because I wasn't sure after when I had my accident if I would, be able to perform ever again or anything. So we played for that benefit, and we all had so much fun that we kept that going for several years. And actually now we're just playing about once a year because I'm not having quite enough breath to really lead a band, a big band. And then, let's see, all through that time I've been playing with kids. I have always done school programs. Also singing with seniors in nursing homes. I've been doing that pretty much all those years, and I think that gets most of it.
That's a lot of territory. You've mentioned a number of times your accident. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that later, but obviously it colors and it affects what kind of music you do, and I think inspiration in the songs that come through you. What song are we going to start out with, though, to show off what your music has been and is?
Our Lady of Hope, I guess. I think I picked that one to start off with just because it kind of, I guess, reflects. I grew up Roman Catholic, so I'm kind of familiar with that Catholic mythology and whatever. The song actually came from a story called The Juggler for Our Lady, and I kind of melded the story as a backdrop and then kind of built a song around that. The song takes place in Quebec City, where I have some French-Canadian cousins, and so it just kind of captured all of those elements, I guess.
It is Our Lady of Hope, and it's by my guest for today's Song of the Soul, Mike Hamer.
The white marble virgin sits alone inside of the grotto. Up on the side of the hill where the maples turn gold. The men and the women walk by her without any note. In the streets of old Quebec, where the winters are cold, a man named Michel was walking with his eyes to the pavement, never noticing the women in their skirts and their working hair. He never heard the bells that rang from the grand old cathedral. He was worried his wife was leaving him for the end. Our Lady of Hope, send us a sign in the morning. Our Lady of Hope, can you fly through the air? Do you know my heart, or do I need to know you? Our Lady of Hope, do you have a secret to share? 4 children they'd had, yet so much he couldn't remember. But a cafe in town where they'd had coffee and cake. It was summer and her blue dress showed her legs off like statues, and her eyes had the wild beauty of a remote northern lake. Our Lady of Hope, send us a sign in the morning. Our Lady of Hope, can you fly through the air? Do you know my heart, or do I need to know you? Our Lady of Hope, do you have a secret to share? Now the wild geese are flying along the St. Lawrence, her hospital room. He takes her to look out the window. They smile to Our Lady of Hope as she waves from the hill. Our Lady of Hope, send us a sign in the morning. Our Lady of Hope, can you fly through the air? Do you know my heart, or do I need to know you? Our Lady of Hope, do you have a secret to share? Our Lady of Hope, please help us with our despair.
That was Our Lady of Hope. It's by Mike Hamer, who's here with me today. Did you perform that with one of the groups? I mean, I don't think you're an accordionist these days, are you?
No, that was an album that my first 2 or 3 recordings were all with the big band, with the Mike Hamer and the Rhinoceroses and the Angelic Choir. But I always wrote acoustic songs too, so I just decided that I really ought to do an acoustic album. Some of those were older songs, and some of them were kind of newer ones. And luckily I had some good musician friends to call on to help out with the recording.
The story in there about the man walking around and he's got his eyes down and he's worried about his wife and their 4 kids and all this kind of thing. Is this an actual story of someone, or is this just invention from this other story, The Juggler for Our Lady?
Yeah, it's more invention.
Do you mean they don't really have sad people walking around the streets of Quebec? It's a pleasant place. I've been there a few times and really enjoy it. And since I do speak French, I get along just fine, even though their French sounds really interesting to me. Do you speak French at all?
I do some. I'm not really good, but every summer we still get together, a family reunion, and I have 2 cousins that I'm close to, one of whom really doesn't speak much English, so I get to try out my French at least once a year.
Très bien, très bien.
Oui, oui.
I was saying, though, that the accordion in that song sounded kind of bouncy, Germanic, kind of Polish, something over there, that kind of bouncing. But they have that kind of accordion, that kind of music up in Quebec as well?
Oh, yes, they sure do. Yeah, I can't think of any groups right offhand, but I've definitely heard that kind of music up there.
That's good music. Well, let's go on in your music right away. What would you like us to do next for your Song of the Soul, Mike?
Well, a song called Fill Me Up, and ironically, I don't have a whole lot to say about this song, except that when I went back to school to get my degree in English, I did my master's thesis on mysticism, and actually the mysticism in Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, a nonfiction book of nature writing by Annie Dillard. And I wrote my master's thesis on the mysticism in 2 of Annie Dillard's books. And doing that study, I got to be familiar with the whole theology of mysticism, which entails the via negativa and the via positiva. And I just kind of felt that that song captured some of the mysticism and some of my Catholicism background, kind of melded them together, and I feel that that's been a heavy influence on my writing all through.
The song Fill Me Up it's about a cup, but I assume it's a metaphorical cup, but it also, you include a lot of things in there that are very cup specific, but the fill me with sweet, fill me with bitter, all of those kind of things. I guess those can be literal and they can be figurative. Were you thinking about anything particular as you were writing that?
No, like I said, that was kind of a song that just kind of presented itself, and it just felt right. And sometimes if get to that point, that's okay, leave it alone. Maybe it's done.
Well, it's a pretty deep song. It's moving, haunting, and of course you're playing hammered dulcimer in it. Let's listen to Fill Me Up by Mike Hamer.
Fill me up, I am your cup. Fill me with sweet, fill me with bitter. Let me fill you up. I'll be your vessel, I'll bring you water. I am a small cup from blue English china, willow design, no one is finer. Brought out for strong teas and sweetest liquors. So many stories, so many offers. Fill me up, I am your cup. Fill me with sweet, fill me with bitters. Let me fill you up. I'll be your vessel, I'll bring you water. Sometimes lovers have come to my side, their lips so close, I was their partner. But then the years passed, too many secrets, never again their two lips together. So let me be the cup to renew you, as your bare legs dive into deep waters. Let me carry the liquid to cool you, as you return from fighting hot fires. Fill me up, I am your cup. Fill me with sweet, fill me with bitter. Let me fill you up. I'll be your vessel, I'll bring you water. One day I'll fall and I will be broken. I'll be returned to the clay I was born in. Someday my stories will be forgotten. Someday my stories will be forgotten. Fill me up, I am your cup. Fill me with sweet, fill me with bitter. Let me fill you up. I'll be your vessel, I'll bring you water.
That was Fill Me Up, Mike Hamer. And Mike, you mentioned at the beginning the groups you've played with and the various instruments you'd played. I don't think you mentioned hammer dulcimer in that whole litany of years of music. When did you pick up hammered dulcimer?
Well, I had my diving accident in 1985. I remember distinctly I was in the hospital the first week, when I was just coming out of the big drugs they had me on for the first 24, 48 hours. The first thing I thought of, I kind of took stock of what was paralyzed and what wasn't. I didn't know what all was totally paralyzed. But I noticed anyway that my wrists were good, but that my fingers didn't work. So my first thought was, what the heck am I going to play now? I'd heard Walt Michael play once at a festival here in Greenville, and when I first heard Walt Michael play and heard that hammer dulcimer, I went, wow, what is that sound? Then, kind of forgot about it. I never really intended to be a hammer dulcimer player. I was a bass player and really enjoyed playing the bass. But then, when I was in intensive care and I was thinking about that, I was thinking, well, maybe hammer dulcimer would work. When I got out of the hospital, someone loaned me a hammer dulcimer, and luckily there was enough tension between my fingers that I could put the hammers between my fingers and use my wrists that are in fine shape and play. after a fashion. I'm not a virtuoso hammer dulcimer player by any stretch, but I can keep the chords going. And I had those years of playing guitar, so I mostly do arpeggios, I guess, on the dulcimer. And I also sometimes try to play it like a piano when I'm doing old standards and that kind of thing.
Are you still doing things with kids and with the nursing homes, that kind of thing? And if you perform, what do you do?
I play hammer dulcimer, and sing. Actually, I'm playing for kids this coming Saturday, and just played at a rest home a couple of weeks ago, so definitely still doing both, and playing hammer dulcimer for those venues. The only time I don't play hammer dulcimer is when I'm singing with the rhinoceroses, because that usually has one or two electric guitars, and there's that's kind of one of those big bands. It's got a lot of people, a lot of times, like 7, 8, 9 people. So we don't need a hammer dulcimer in there.
Speaking of hammer dulcimers, just a month or two ago, I had an aunt who died, and the Catholic Church, where the funeral was held, it was interesting because the musical backup there was hammer dulcimer. And I think maybe Catholic churches need more of that. Do you still attend a Catholic church? Is that still part of your current practice, or is it mainly just background?
No, actually, there was a time when I didn't go to church, but then I taught comparative mythology for a while when I was in my career as a lecturer up here at the university, East Carolina University. In teaching the mythology courses, of course, they had the hero story. It talked about the hero story as one of those archetypal stories that keeps coming back in all the world religions. So I started going back to church and fell in love with the Mass because it is the hero story every week. It worked for me, so I am going back to church.
Therefore, my suggestion is maybe they need a hammer dulcimer for their music.
Yeah, I have played at my parish. I have played in the past. Usually it's just too difficult for me to bring it like every week or anything like that. But Christmas and Easter, usually, they ask me to play.
That would be really sweet music for Christmas tunes, I'd think, yeah. Hammer dulcimer would be very appropriate for that. Well, let's go on in some more of your music. What's next on your Song of the Soul journey?
The next selection will be Under the Stone. This goes to the time after my accident, my diving accident. When I actually had the diving accident, I was in the hospital for 6 months. And I got a lot of attention. And then in the next year, I still got a lot of attention from people. And I'm pretty convinced what happened next was my subconscious realized that I hadn't really grieved the loss of my former life. So I went through a pretty rough year of just, I think I sabotaged the relationship just because my subconscious knew I had to grieve. Because there wasn't any real reason that I sabotaged that relationship that I can think of. So I had kind of this rough year, when I wrote some good songs, that kind of happens. So this has always been kind of one of my favorite tunes. I like this tune a lot.
The song is Under the Stone, Mike Hamer.
Trouble and heartache, tears in the night. I'm under the stone, I feel the edge of the knife. Trouble and heartache, tears in the night. I'm under the stone, I feel the edge of the knife. I was out in the ocean, got swallowed up by a whale. It was so dark and smelly, well, I laid down and cried. Then along came Jonah, he asked me for a match. We got a cup of sperm oil, and we played a game of hearts. Trouble and heartache, tears in the night. I'm under the stone, I feel the edge of the knife. trouble and heartache, tears in the night. I'm under the storm, I feel the edge of the night. Down in the old mine, down and down and down. Lost my light, I lost my way. Well, I laid down and died. Then along came my totem, blew into my nose. I walked back to the entrance, yeah, and the grass gleamed like gold. Trouble and heartache, tears in the night. I'm under the storm, I feel the edge of the night. Trouble and heartache, tears in the night. I'm under the storm, I feel the edge of the night.
That was Under the Stone, Mike Hamer. But I should check with you, Mike. Is that just you? I mean, that's a band, a whole group of people. So who are you performing with there?
That's Mike Hamer and the Rhinoceroses with the Angelic Choir. And I know you're going to ask, why did you name a band the Rhinoceroses? It was a big band, and so I was trying to think of a big animal. And I like the fact that it was so preposterous to say rhinoceroses.
Well, it's not even correct. Isn't it rhinoceri in plural?
Well, I think it's actually either one.
You're the one who's got the English degree. I was counting on you to have the right answer.
Yeah, I know. I never set myself up as the English expert. Unless you're doing grammar in my freshman composition class.
Your little trip in that song with Jonah in the night, it's pretty lighthearted for some really heavy emotions, grieving and this kind of thing. Is that the way you deal with your dark night of the soul?
I think so. I try not to take things too seriously, especially not myself. Yeah, I like to integrate some humor in any way that I can, certainly, even though I feel that it is still kind of a dark night of the soul song.
Well, speaking of Dark Night of the Soul and turning it light, the next song that I believe you've chosen, Rolling Wheelchair Blues, it also takes, disability that maybe you're supposed to be heartbroken and crying in your beer about, and all of a sudden you're on a roll with it. Is this after 5 years of recovery, 10 years recovery, and finding your space, or did it come fairly quickly for you?
It actually came fairly quickly. In fact, I believe I wrote Rolling Wheelchair Blues before I wrote Under the Stone. But I was in a relationship with a real good woman, a storyteller, and she helped me tremendously in just figuring out what was possible as a quadriplegic at age 37 and 38, and what was possible to do in terms of my music, but in terms of, just having fun with life. And she helped me to really stretch out and take some chances. But anyway, her house was totally inaccessible. It wasn't totally inaccessible. We could get me in there, but when I would go to visit, she'd have to bounce me up onto her porch, which is a lyric in there. And there was a hill by her house. So just to kind of, let's have some fun. And that's been my attitude about disability, that there's so much crappy stuff that happens with a disability. Just in my own case, chronic bed sores and accidents that happen and not being able to go places you might like to go to. For example, for me, it would be like canoeing all the time or into the woods all the time. So it was kind of, well, I can't do that, but let's have fun anyway.
It's fun time. Rolling Wheelchair Blues.
Well, I may not be walking, baby, but I can roll right up to you. I may not be walking, baby, but I can roll right up to you. I can hug and squeeze and kiss you, and that ain't all that I can do. Roll, roll, roll. We're rolling through our lives. Roll, roll, roll. Through the bad and the good times. Roll, roll, roll. Baby, we're rolling tonight. Second floor, baby, I ain't coming to your place. If you move to the second floor, baby, I ain't coming to your place. I try to roll up them steps, I'm gonna fall flat on my face. Roll, roll, roll. We're rolling through our lives. Roll, roll, roll. Through the bad and the good times. Roll, roll, roll. Baby, we're rolling tonight. When I call outside your window, come on and bounce me under your porch. When I call outside your window, baby, come on and bounce me under your porch. Turn the lights way down low, we're gonna light the torch. Roll, roll, roll. We're rolling through our lives. Roll, roll, roll. Bad and the good times. Roll, roll, roll. Baby, we're rolling tonight. Crawl up under my lap, honey. Yeah, we'll roll on down this hill. Crawl up under my lap, honey. Yeah, and we'll roll on down this hill. We've got lots of imagination. Don't need no high to get a thrill. Roll, roll, roll. We're rolling through our lives. Roll, roll, roll. Through the bad and the good times. Roll, roll, roll. Baby, we're rolling tonight.
That fun little tune is Rollin' Wheelchair Blues. I guess it's blues, it's jazzy, it's a lot of that, and it's fun, and that's what we get when we hang around with someone like Mike Hamer, who's with us here today for Song of the Soul. Mike, did you really think that was a blues? I don't think that was bluesy enough because you didn't sound sad enough. I mean, blues, aren't you supposed to be brokenhearted?
Well, it was kind of an R&B based tune. Yeah, I don't think it's really a blues. It's more of a fun dance tune. It's fun to sing along with.
You've mentioned several times that you became a quadriplegic as a result of a diving accident. And so I've got two different visions in my mind. One is you're going swimming and you're diving into the water and it's too shallow. And the other one is that you're diving out of a plane. It's skydiving. You want to tell me what really happened?
Yeah, it was the first. I thought the water was 4 feet deep. I did a shallow dive, but it ended up, this was a river. I had swam in this place before, but I totally forgot that the rivers here, because it's really part of a sound, they have tides. And so I assumed that the water was about 4 feet deep, but it was about maybe 18 inches deep at the most, but maybe even only, 12 inches deep, something. So I did a shallow dive, but still, actually it didn't even break the skin on my forehead where I hit, but, it obviously did a job on my spinal cord.
So were you an outdoors type of guy?
Yes, very much. I grew up on a farm in northern Vermont. Just always loved being out in the woods. And in North Carolina, eastern North Carolina, I fell in love with the swamps. And, of course, I still get into the swamps every chance I get. But, yeah, I'm definitely a person who loves to be outside.
Isn't it kind of challenging to get around the woods in a wheelchair, or how do you do that? You say you get into the swamps. I just have a hard time imagining how you do that.
Well, I call myself the canoe whore. If anybody offers to take me paddling, I'll go. So the way I can get into the swamps these days is in a canoe, but I have to go with other folks that would paddle the canoe. I really can't paddle a canoe. If I could figure out some way to do it independently, believe me, I would. And luckily, even right on my street, just down a block and a half from my house, there's a river, and the city of Greenville just built a nice walkway called the Greenway. It goes right along the river, so I feel pretty fortunate. I'm able to be down there by the river just about every day.
Do you also like to do things like camping?
I do, and I have to say that I never did really learn when I was in rehab how to empty my leg bag in a bathroom, because it's always just really difficult. So I usually just find a secluded spot out of doors, just empty my leg bag there. And actually one night when I was doing that, this song it was one of those gift songs. It just came to me. And when I do programs with kids, it's always a big hit with the kids.
You're referring to Pee in the Woods?
Yes.
So you really give this advice to kids. This is accepted behavior in North Carolina. It's in Wisconsin it's good too, but in winter it can be a problem,
Yes, sure can. I know about that.
Well, let's have some fun. So this is one that Mike Hamer would do with kids and certainly with the adults. I think we'd all love it. It's called Pee in the Woods.
Pee in the woods, they like it. It'll make them grow, and they like it. Dogs do it, tree frogs do it, you can do it too. Pee in the woods, they like it. Well, I went out last night, peeing by my favorite tree. I had that good old feeling, that feeling of relief. When suddenly a voice came from inside the trunk, said, "Thank you so you make me grow, but that stuff smells funky." Pee in the woods, they like it. It'll make them grow, and they like it. Dogs do it, tree frogs do it, you can do it too. Pee in the every chance I get, when nobody is looking, I take myself outside and I go to unzipping. 'Cause I like the air and I've got nitrogen to spare. It'd be a shame for that great resource just to go a-flushing. 'Cause we're getting mighty civilized with the toilet bowls and such. Chances to be really wild, you know there aren't that much. So if it should behoove you to feel really free, take yourself outside tonight and pee beside a tree. Pee in the woods, they like it. It'll make them grow and they like it. Dogs do it, tree frogs do it, you can do it too. Pee in the woods, they like it. Now to all you females, I know this may not sound fair. Everybody knows it's tougher to squat than pull a little guy out in the air. But if you're creative, and you won't find this in any book, you'll find your pee most welcome right beside a bush. Pee in the woods, they like it. It'll make them grow and they like it. Dogs do it, tree frogs do it, you can do it too. Pee in the woods, they like it. Dogs do it, tree frogs do it, you can do it too. Pee in the woods, they like it.
That was Pee in the Woods. Mike Hamer is with us here today for Song of the Soul. This is a Northern Spirit Radio production, and my name is Mark Helpsmeet, your host. Our website is northernspiritradio.org, and on the site you can find the stations that play our programs, and you can listen to any of them. They're all there available for your listening, and when you do that, please leave us a comment. We like to hear what you like, what you don't like, and what we should be doing for our shows. So please visit northernspiritradio.org. My home radio station is WHYS LP Eau Claire. Today for Song of the Soul, we're visiting with Mike Hamer. He's got quite a variety of music. I guess you're mainly a singer now? You're mainly a dulcimer player? What do you think of yourself as musically now, Mike?
Yeah, singer-songwriter, dulcimer player. Always a musician in transition. I'm actually having some trouble with my breathing. It's been 25 years since my accident now, and lately I've been having trouble just kind of getting enough wind in performances. Tried one of these inhalers, but that didn't kind of work with my body, so I had to give that up. So I've taken up playing the chromatic harmonica, the most difficult instrument I've ever attempted to play, but I'm basically learning to play the chromatic because it really makes me breathe, and I'm hoping I can kind of rehabilitate my breathing so I can sing more. So I'm actually thinking ahead. If I do lose the ability to continue singing as much, I've recently fallen in love with classical music, and so I'm kind of wanting to try my hand at composition at some point.
The whole transition that happened in your late 30s when you had your diving accident, do you feel like you've come to a steady state afterwards in terms of like, here's who I was then and here's who I am now? Have you found a new home that way?
I guess the new home comes from the spirituality, really, aspects of just being a human being that I am. Somebody who's taught mythology. I like to read spiritual texts from every tradition. I'm totally in love with the Tao Te Ching, and I read that just about every day, I guess. And maybe it's part of aging, just trying to figure out who we are and figure out life. Keep working at it, on a life as maybe a work of art itself. So the next song is going to be Finally Coming Home, which was written actually in Puerto Rico. That was some friends kind of provided me with the funds. They'd raised enough money so I could go to Puerto Rico, and the first night we arrived in San Juan, this song just kind of came, not the words, but the tune. And the lyric was influenced by both, I guess, my spiritual journey, but also the fact that while I was on the trip, a dear friend had just a huge sorrow in her life, a family member of hers taking his life. So there was this extreme sadness that I just kind of put them together in this song.
It's Finally Coming Home, Mike Hamer.
There are hillsides that are too steep for climbing, so you go your way in the valleys. There are bird songs that are too sad for mornings, and you wipe the tears with your sleeve. Don't be scared of the valley of sorrow. Soon you'll find the path to the heights, and feel the heat of the sun on your bones. Then you'll know that you're finally coming home. Sadnesses will come with no prior warning, and you'll feel a fever in your soul. You kneel, you pray, you beg for some kind of mercy, for a box wrapped in ribbons filled with hope. Don't be scared of the valley of sorrows. Soon you'll find the path to the heights, and feel the heat of the sun on your bones. Then you'll know that you're finally coming home.
That was Mike Hamer with Finally Coming Home. Mike, there's kind of advice in the song. Don't be scared of the valley of shadows. Soon you'll find the path to the heights. I guess that's your experience?
It is my experience that, well, we have those crappy days. We all have them, those really crappy days, but, you know, luckily we have those really beautiful days, and we just have to kind of turn those crappy days around as much as we can so they're tolerable, and know that they have a value in their own, and then just really celebrate the good times when they're here.
Well, I know you've got one more song picked out for your Song of the Soul, and I think it's got a similar message. It's Gonna Be All Right is the name of the song. Again, you've had what most people consider a very unfortunate event in your life. Is your life better or worse for it? Do you think you have a decision about that at this point?
Oh, well, you know, I think we all have our tragedies that happen in our lives. do I love being a quadriplegic? No. If I had a chance to not be a quadriplegic, would I not be in a heartbeat? I miss playing the bass. I miss walking in the woods. I miss a lot of things. But on the other hand, I've had a very rich life. I have wonderful friends, and I'm excited about, maybe this afternoon I'll have time to work on a new song or tinker with a song, besides grading some of my freshman essays. But, yeah, this song, I just felt like, there are a lot of people that are worried about the world, it seems like, and I guess when I wrote this, I was reading a lot of Hafiz, who's also a mystical writer from the Sufi tradition. So I just felt like if I wanted to leave listeners with a song that kind of fits our times right now, I felt like maybe this song could help.
It's gonna be alright. We don't need to be frightened. Life is hard, but we pray for rest in this beautiful place. We forgive the past. We don't fear the future. We want to wake up with love in our hearts in the cradle of grace. We dived into the water. We came up black and blue. We always sucked the mango to get every bit of juice. We slow danced with death, danced a jig with the angel too. Still fascinated with Seth, we do what we can do. It's gonna be alright. We don't need to be frightened. Life is hard, but we pray for rest in this beautiful place. We forgive the past. We don't fear the future. We want to wake up with love in our hearts in the cradle of grace. We get our wine from the water. We get our food in the field. We get our spark from the music and the beautiful girls. We get our stories from our dreams. We have long talks with trees. We know we're a mess, but we can't help but love the world. It's gonna be alright. We don't need to be frightened. Life is hard, but we pray for rest in this beautiful place. We forgive the past. We don't fear the future. We want to wake up with love in our hearts in the cradle of grace. We plant seedlings in the spring, hope for fruit while we're still around. We've been here long enough to go with whatever happens. We plan to climb the highest mountains, to dive into the deepest caves. We hope to find our way to the mystic garden. It's gonna be alright. We don't need to be frightened. Life is hard, but we pray for rest in this beautiful place. We forgive the past. We don't fear the future. We want to wake up with love in our hearts in the cradle of grace. We want to wake up with love in our hearts in the cradle of grace.
That was It's Gonna Be All Right by Mike Hamer, who's been our guest for Song of the Soul. Mike, you're an inspiration. So I want to thank you for that inspiration and for the wonderful music and the humor in there. All around, you're a gift to the world. And thank you for sharing with Song of the Soul.
Well, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your program.
That was Mike Hamer joining us from North Carolina as today's Song of the Soul guest.